morning. Welcome back. And as we wait to speak to the political leaders on what we are witnessing in the country, before we do so, let's take a look at some of the stories that are following up for you today, being Tuesday, the 13th of October 2020. First, this is the second day of the schools reopening after what we witnessed yesterday, some learners reporting to school without masks, others unable to keep their distance, others, you'll see that the head teachers are complaining, saying that they have shortage of these essential commodities, as well as places where the learners can wash their hands. They are calling on the government as well as the parents to supplement the little resources that they have to be in a position to keep the learners safe. So this is the second day for the learners that are not able to report to school yesterday. They're expected to do so in course of the week. But also we are looking forward to the story of the counties receiving their allocations for this financial year. As of yesterday, the National Treasury wrote to the Control of Budget seeking to have 52 billion shillings released to the counties, and therefore that means that the counties can begin to apply to withdraw some of these resources. We understand that the 52 billion shillings is money meant for the first 2 months of the financial year, and therefore the counties can begin to requisition so that they can access those funds. It may take a few days to a few weeks before the counties are able to receive the allocation for this financial year. So these are some of the stories that are following up for you. We'll be sure to bring you the latest as soon as they develop. In the meantime, joining us this morning is Commissioner Priscilla Nyokabi from the National Gender and Equality Commission. Good morning, Commissioner. We're still expecting Honorable Gladys Bost and Gladys Wanga to join us, the woman representative for Uasin Gishu and Homa Bay, respectively. But I want us to begin with you and take a look at what we witnessed yesterday. I don't know whether you've been able to follow the stories of children reporting to school, witnessing the shortages that you're seeing in masks, some of the learners reporting to school without masks, and some of the teachers directing them that they have to get at least 7 masks every week. What have you been able to observe in as far as this return to school and the new normal is concerned?
Thank you, and good morning. You know, I follow also as a parent with children who need to go to school. And I also want to just share this CBC, new curriculum. I was a bit lost on the grade 4. You know, whether they were the new standard 4s, the old standard 4s. So a little bit more information needs to be given by the ministry in terms of the preparation for the school opening. But I think as far as dealing with COVID and dealing with the new normal is concerned, we are on the right track. There was no other way other than to attempt to reopen schools despite COVID and to just make the measures. I also chair a board at Gatugi Girls in Nyeri County Secondary School. And we had many meetings as the Board of Management on preparations for reopening of the school, especially for our Form 4s and for the secondary school girls. And I'm hoping that a lot of the measures that was discussed, the support that we got from the ministry, the week being the first week, I think by the time we get to Friday, a lot of the teething problems will be done. For the masks, we have the sort of the washable masks or the more than one wear masks. I would really recommend that we try those ones also for the schools because it's going to also be a bit expensive to do the day-by-day masks. So there are some masks that you can wear for a couple of you need to invest in those. The sizes of the masks and also the hand washing equipment, the soap, the sanitizer, and just make sure that the children who learn things very fast, just as they brush their teeth, as they brush their teeth, they also learn how to wash their hands. Mm-hmm. And I think it's going to be positive. A lot of kudos to our teachers. A lot is expected of them at this point. We, the parents, help where we can. But as a country, we just hold on, and it's a bit like a plane. We put on our seatbelts and swim the ride.
Mm-hmm. And of course, Honorable Nyokabi, some of the fears that have been is that with the reopening, of course, you've seen some countries where schools reopened, but they had to shut down a few days to weeks. But in the Kenyan situation, what do you think we have to do? Because, yes, the teachers are saying we don't have sufficient resources. The Ministry of Education has said it is up to the parent to acquire these masks. What can we do in the intervening period to ensure that we're able to retain the learners in school, but also keep them safe?
I think one major thing is going to be constant monitoring of what's going on with the school reopening. It is true that some other countries have opened schools and had to close them. So the minister, CS Magoha, has to just keep his eyes on the ball on this one. If there is any spike at all in the infections, then the schools would have to be closed again. But in terms of the measures, I think it's much more awareness of the measures, and is much more buy-in by the parents to support the school reopening in terms of buying them the things that we need. Just as we buy school uniform, just as we buy school pencils, just as we buy school bags, I think it's just to note that now a new normal has come around COVID, and we have then to buy the equipment that we need for COVID. But constant monitoring, I'm hoping that the task force that advised the school opening remains active and remains alert, because it's going to be flexibility. You're going to make decisions by the day. You're going to make decisions by the night. So that flexibility, the speed, the run, the monitoring, the cooperation by the district education officers, or what we call the county education officers and the sub-county education officers and the principals. And really, we have many wrong systems in our country. Education is not one of them. Mm-hmm. So it's not time now to we have always had a working education system in this country. In fact, it embarrasses the politicians. If we were running our politics the way we run our schools, we wouldn't be in the problems we are in right now. So it is time for the Magoha and the others to show that indeed we have an education system that can compete in Africa and that is versatile enough to respond to COVID-19.
Okay, very interesting. And Honorable Gladys Wanga now joins us. She is the woman representative for Homa Bay County. Good morning, Honorable. And so looking at the images we saw yesterday, I asked the same question to Honorable Priscilla there, that you see learners reporting to school without masks. I don't know, what have we not done and that we need to fix in the coming days so that we can ensure the spread of COVID-19 does not hit and overwhelm the learning institutions?
Thank you, Sam. I think it was a step in the right direction for the Ministry of Education to do this phased reopening so that we can see what it is that is working, what it is, where the gaps are, before we actually open the schools for everybody. And we did see the learners going back, some not having masks, but I also had the teachers complaining and saying that the students were not paying too much attention to wearing the masks. And I think we just need to tighten that up. The teachers need to make sure they're paying a little more attention. Everybody is sacrificing a little more. Where the parents can, I think we could go an extra step to ensure that these masks that are stitched, especially the reusable ones, can actually be, every student could have, one or two reusable masks, because it appears, logistically, because it was said that NYS would do masks for all the students, but it appears logistically it didn't work out, and I don't think it's likely to work out for the government to provide actual masks, especially the disposable masks to everybody. So I think looking at the long term, and given that it is now clear that COVID is going to be here with us for the long term, we need to adapt the use of reusable masks. The children need to be taught to wash, properly wash their masks, keep them, just as they are washing their hands and so on as we move on. But some, it doesn't, in the short of it is, it doesn't look feasible for government to provide, masks for everybody. And even if they did provide for the beginning, it doesn't look feasible to keep providing. Where they can, they should. Where NYS has done and they can provide, they should. But I think all of us must just step up within this pandemic situation and ensure that our children are safe.
Right. And Honorable Wanga, looking at the lessons from other countries, what do you think must happen so that we can take a different action? Because listening to the Cabinet Secretary yesterday, he was indicating that the other learners that have not resumed will be required to return as soon as they are able to make a determination. What do you think are some of the minimums that we have to wait to see before we can let the other learners get back to school?
I think we should see how this how the children behave. and it's good that we also had grade 4 going so that we can see how the younger children will behave and how the older ones do. I think we must look at and look out for any spike or incidences of infection. I think, you know, what the other countries have done, and I'm just seeing a picture there of the girls being fumigated. I think we must not be overexcited and overdo things in that manner of fumigating people's bodies. But by and large, we are looking out to see, is there any spike in infection? Are the classrooms and the children keeping the required social distancing? Are the teachers able to cope with just supervising the children? You know, are they psychologically? And you could see that the children are happy to be back to school, really. And if we do not see a major spike in infection, say in the next 3-4 weeks, then I think it should be possible for the children, other children, to start also going back, but also in a phased manner. I don't think they should all go back at a go myself.
Okay, all right. Of course, I will wait to see what happens, even as we know that in the country, in what was witnessed the last week that ended on Sunday, the positivity rate in the COVID-19 infections was on the rise after reporting an average of 302 infections on a daily basis. But all the same, we focused on another topic now, which is informing conversations in the country, and that is to do with National Security Advisory Committee orders that were issued sometime last week, I believe it was on Wednesday, saying that the Public Order Act will have to be implemented to the letter, that politicians that want, or those conveners that want to hold meetings, public meetings, have to notify the police between 3 and 14 days, and the police have the liberty to cancel these events should they feel that there is a risk of violence. Let's listen to what the Deputy President said yesterday in responding to what has happened to some of his meetings.
Sisi wote ni sawa chini ya katiba ya Kenya. Let us not turn Kenya into the animal farm where there are some that are more equal than others. The law must apply equally across Kenya, irrespective of who is leaning towards which or what direction.
All right, so that's the Deputy President, William Ruto, there. And let me begin with you, Honorable Priscilla Nyokabi. So, of course, there have been these questions being asked. Yes, it is whatever the National Security Advisory Committee announced is contained in the Public Order Act, but there are those that feel that this is contrary to the Constitution. Where do you stand, and do you feel there is sufficient reason to stop some of these meetings that the Deputy President and his allies had wanted to hold?
I think what happens is almost like the story we had before of the new normal. I mean, COVID is still here with us. We also have the deaths that happened in Murang'a following the skirmishes there. We are entering into the pre-election phase of the next election. And the deaths that happened, it's still a bit too early to tell. But I think that eventually when the record is written, they will start to appear like pre-election violent deaths. And so for those deaths not to be in vain, I'm happy that the National Security Advisory Council came out and gave the advisory, the committee, as it were, gave the advisory. And so the Public Order Act has always been with us, just as we have had the Public Health Act. And so routinely, just looking at the health of the nation, if we are not moving in the right direction as far as public meetings are concerned and public order is concerned, then the sort of guidelines that the committee gave would have to come in. But the only part I agree is that it would have to be enforced equally across all regions, across all the counties, and just make sure that public order is being followed. We have peace now when we have the handshake, but here in Africa, we are never out of the woods as far as violence is concerned and on matters elections and on matters fighting for power. So because we are not out of the woods yet, we have to be so careful with our peace, be so careful with our public order, be so careful with our events that if there is a trigger, then we have to respond to that trigger. And Murang'a gave the trigger for the sort of response that we are seeing. I think now the enforcement is what should follow, and just making sure that everybody is enforcing the same rules, and we have order and we have hygiene in our politics, and for all means and by all means, we do not have pre-election violence. It's way too early. 2 years ahead of time is way too early to start having the violence that we saw in Murang'a. So may we enforce the rules so that we can have a little bit more order and have a little bit more development. Remember, every time our politics goes up, our development and our economy suffers. So I think the other action is to reduce the politics so that our economy and our development can pick up some speed, especially now reopening after COVID. Thanks.
Okay, very interesting there. But I'm just wondering, because you said that this should be applied because already you've seen scenes of pre-election violence, do you think an event in Murang'a should be applied in judging events in Kisii, events in Kakamega, events in Kwale? Is it fair?
You know, one death is usually one death too many. Once you have a single death, that is enough to respond. Because if you let the one in Murang'a go, you don't know what's going to happen to Kisii and to Bukungu and to the other counties. So I think what really has caused these very urgent interventions is the death. And death and violence and loss of property and economic difficulties. One case is one too many. The two families that are crying, they feel that, you know, those deaths should really not be in vain. So me, I would say, if even one person dies, wherever that person dies, there must be a response. And that has been the difference between Africa and other countries in the world. Here we wait until too many deaths have happened for us to take action. Now that the 2 deaths happened in Murang'a, remember there is preparation for the funerals and condolences to the families. I think one death is one too many. Once one death has happened, that should be enough.
Okay, all right. And Honorable Wanga, I don't know what your thoughts are in as far as the curtailment of these meetings, because the Inspector General of Police will be putting the tweet on our board shortly, because he says that part of the reason why these meetings are being cancelled is that he says that he has taken note of complaints about selective application of enforcing the law on public gatherings. The National Police authorizes public gatherings after ascertaining that there is no risk of violence or attack on the particular group, and continues to say that should we establish any possible risk, then authorization is declined for safety of the public and the properties around the same area. There are groups that have not attracted any form of violence, while others have attracted violence, hence varied authorizations. And I'm just wondering, reading what the Inspector General of Police is saying and comparing that to what the Public Order Act is saying and the reality in this country, do you think there has been there has been fair application of this rule?
Thank you, Sam. First, Sam, I'd like to say, he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. And Sam, when you know, supporters of my own party and so on were tear gassed, you know, were shot at, were arrested, you know, there was never lifting of a finger by the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. In fact, he and his supporters always encouraged it, you know, openly, and said, you know, police must be empowered to do their work and so on and so forth. To come back now and say, you know, apply the law fairly and so on, if you come to equity, you must come with clean hands. But coming back to the question of what the IG is saying, I think the National Security Council assesses the security situation in the country and gives advisories from time to time. And there's been, you know, the Deputy President has been moving around the whole, you know, 2 years. He has been having a lot of public rallies. He has been having barazas. He has been having church meetings. Nobody has ever stopped him until there was the incidences of heightened tensions. You know, wherever he would go, there's a lot of heightened tensions. There are people transported to, you know, to sort of cheer him, and these people then clash with, you know, the locals, and this is the situation that, you know, was escalating. And I think if the National Security Council then said, notify the police, please, if you have a function, so that they can help with the, you know, security situation. But if they sensed, for example, I can see the meeting that was in Bondo. You know, if they sensed that there was any sense of insecurity suspected, then they would have advised that because there is, you know, we are sensing that there would be a clash and so on, we propose that the meeting be rescheduled, and that would have been done. So I think let us just take it positively, let us notify them, and let us avoid this issue of transporting people so that you look like you have many people and this is causing clashes, and this is the reason the National Security Council is reacting to this matter. And on this,
but Honorable Wanga, of course, what you're saying makes sense, but is it fair that the meetings of Deputy President in Nyamira, in Kakamega, in Kwale County, all of them have to be cancelled on excuse that there is risk of violence which is not communicated in advance? Some of the supporters of the Deputy President have been saying that if you see the risk of violence, then it's up to you as the police to contain it.
Yes, it is up to you to contain it, and sometimes you would say, you know, like in Murang'a, the police really tried to contain the situation, but they did try to contain the situation. At the end of the day, the public had fought and 2 lives had been lost. It was too little, too late. And therefore, let us give the security agencies, and remember, I was saying on this show last week, we are the ones carrying goods. Then we want to blame the police. We are the ones transporting. If you're having a function in Murang'a, why are you transporting hundreds of people in buses from Nairobi to come and support you?
Well, we appear to have lost Honorable Gladys Wanga there. But all the same, we'll be trying to reconnect with her as we continue this conversation with Priscilla Nyokabi from the National Gender and Equality Commission, as well as Gladys Bost, who's joining us shortly. But we are at the point of talking about the situation in the country where the Deputy President has said that some of these matters, how they're being applied, it would appear like we are getting into the animal farm. Like I said, there are those tweets that were issued from the National Police Service by the Inspector General indicating why there's the variance in how these events are being managed, saying that they will not hesitate to disallow any event that there is a risk of violence. So I don't know who we have so that... all right, we have Gladys Bost, the woman representative for us in Gishu. Good morning, Honorable, and sorry for the technical challenges this morning. And we're at the point of talking about the meetings of the Deputy President and his allies that have been cancelled. Honorable Wanga and Priscilla feel that because of the Murang'a events and the deaths that were reported there, that's reason enough to go ahead and be very vigilant with the other meetings that the Deputy President or his allies plan. I don't know what you have to say in as far as reconciling what is happening vis-a-vis the constitutional rights of to freedom of opinion, association, assembly, and expression?
I think what is happening is unfortunate. Whereas the national security organs under Article 239 have the power to maintain law and order, the same article in fact implores upon them to do not to do exactly what they have done. And some, you know, I like to refer to the Constitution. Mm-hmm. Article 239 of the Constitution says, I have it here, Article 239 allows the national security organ to be able in performing their function. It says that it's the primary object of the organs is to promote and guarantee national security. So guaranteeing national security does not mean breaking up or stopping events. They are supposed to guarantee it. That is why we give them resources, the training, and the ability to be able to, whether it's crowd control abilities or places of diffusing tension, or being able to give certain intelligence reports way in advance, so that they ought to have known if any goods were being transported, which is not true, mm-hmm. then what would have happened is they should have been able to intercept them. And then the article, so it's not for them to break up, they are forgetting. It is to promote and guarantee national security. It goes on to say that in performing their functions and exercising their powers, the national security organs and every member of the national security organs shall not act in a partisan manner to further any interest of a political party or cause, and 3, prejudice a political interest or political cause that is legitimate under this Constitution. So clearly, if you remember, the day of the Murang'a Church event was the same day that the Raila Odinga was also at another church. So you see, it's partisan. When you break somebody else's church meeting and not the other, and you must also understand that under the Public Order Act, churches are not political rallies. Neither are they public meetings. Those are places of worship and don't fall within the ambit of the police walking in and begin to tear gas worshippers. That was unfortunate and uncalled for. Had the police known that there was going to be danger, which they should have known if they were doing their job, if the intelligence, the security organs were doing their job, then they could have cordoned off the church and ensured that people walked in a file safely into the church, but not participate in causing the mayhem. So it is the management of crowd control is lacking in our police force, and therefore there is no excuse whatsoever. Even if there was any transportation, it is the job of the police to intercept those people, not to come and blame us after it has happened. Because then, if they can't take care of such things, how do you then expect them to be able to intercept terrorists and other dangerous criminals? So I think we are letting the police force get off it very easily.
Honorable Bost, I'm trying to verify what you just read. What article was that?
Article 239.
239, okay.
Subclause 3, yes.
Okay.
Where it says, subclause 2 is the one that says they are supposed to promote and guarantee national security. So don't worry what happened in Muranga. It is their job to be there. And remember, the standing orders of the police are such that if a dignitary or anyone is holding an event that is huge, then the security forces must immediately put in the protocols to protect and maintain peace during that time. That's their job. Their job is not to throw tear gas. Throwing tear gas actually causes more mayhem and breach of peace than anything else.
But now, Honorable Bost, so now the Deputy President has not been able to hold his meetings in Nyamira and Kisii counties last weekend. He said that he was going to postpone them to this week. There are some other meetings in Kakamega and Kwale that were not allowed to happen, not to be hosted by him, but to be attended by some of his allies. So what are you thinking? What do you do now? I know the Law Society of Kenya is in court, but yourselves, as the political function that you are, what are you planning to do?
Okay, you know, Sam, there are some things that will sort itself out finally. I'm a good student of history. If you remember, in the years 1966 to 1969, when Jomo Kenyatta and Jaramogi Odinga disagreed, and then Jaramogi attempted to start the KPU party. And what happened? People were being detained without trial. Their parties were not registered. Licenses for rallies were not issued to them. And the Voice of Kenya then, which was the only TV station, was not allowed to cover them. Fast forward, we went on to 1982, when by the time 1969 to 1982, Kenya effectively became a one-party state, which means if you are not doing anything under the umbrella of KANU, you would be detained and you'd be harassed, and you'd not be allowed to have any rallies. Eventually, anyway, come Moi era, by that time, Moi perfected it by making Kenya a de jure one-party state. Under Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, Kenya was a de facto one-party state. But look what happened. By the time we came to the years of Saba Saba, if you remember the Saba Saba riot, by that time, people, by 1992, there was public anger, there was public defiance, there was a public outcry, and people said no to the closure of their democratic space. So this is actually where we are going. Because the more you curtail democratic space, the more you make sure that the headlines are skewed and you influence media houses in favor of a certain political party or a certain cause, the more that you don't give them coverage, the more that you send the police to break up their rallies, eventually it will come.
Well, we appear to have had some challenge with our signal, but as we take a break, I want us to listen to what some of the leaders, the political leaders, said about these meetings, and then we'll come back with more after the break.
Hivi sasa ni kwamba tutaenda kuabudu kwa mapenzi ya mtu ama ya watu fulani ndani ya taifa letu la Kenya.
Isisemekane sababu naibu wa rais ako kanisa hapa, kanisa haliwezi endelea hapa kama yale tunayoona kufanyika huko Kakamega ama yaliyofanyika Murang'a. Na wengine wanaweza kufanya mikutano ya hadhara bila kuzingatia sheria yote.
Anyone kulingana na ule mrengo uko nayo, we should be applying the same law that is in our constitution.
Wale viongozi wote na waomba tukaribiane kwa ukweli. Sisi hatutaki turudie 2007 2008.
Hasa sisi tuliopata nafasi ya uongozi kwa sababu ya sifa nyingi. Bwana mkubwa, mheshimiwa, mustahiki, excellency, baba, mpaka mtu anachanganyikiwa, anakuwa na wazimu. Anaona sasa ndiye yeye amesahau kuna Mungu.